And welcome, Dave. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here. This is awesome.
That's good. We're recording on a Sunday. Shouldn't you be in church?
I did think about that this morning. It's like, did I do that like subconsciously?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reality of it is that once you leave religion, that you do have some time freed up. If you were pretty active, involved before, you can go do things like, I don't know, meet up a friend and have coffee or go for a walk.
Yep.
Maybe go to a restaurant and actually tip. Things like that. So, I'm glad you reached out to me. We share I think we come from different, how do I put this, sub beliefs when it comes to the Baptist denomination. Like I was Southern Baptist and you were, what you can tell me, but you came from, did you
Independent.
say independent? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll talk about,
All of the words, independent, fundamental.
yeah, yeah. So, but let's just go ahead and start. Tell me about your upbringing. Like where you were raised, and maybe a little bit about when did you become a Christian?
Well, let's see. I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. No, I wasn't. I was born in Texas. I was raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay,
Brain dump.
yeah, it's okay.
But I vaguely remember that we were going to church when I was around 7. And we were Southern Baptist, obviously, with Tulsa, Oklahoma in the 70s. I don't think that was our first church because um, I have a huge memory block from a previous house, and I'm guessing. Well, I'm not guessing. I know. Um, but we went to church, but I was obviously under 7 there. Um, but my earliest memory is 7 from the next house going to a Southern Baptist church that literally was my church right up until I graduated high school.
Oh, okay,
So
so
yeah, so
yeah,
I grew up Southern Baptist in Tulsa, Oklahoma in the 70s. So
yeah.
that's pretty much
Okay. Well, I grew up in Southeast Kansas, and I could literally walk into Oklahoma, into Northeast Oklahoma from where I
yeah,
lived. So it
yeah.
was. I've been to Tulsa a few times. Actually, back in the day, there was a place called the Warehouse in Tulsa, and they had Christian metal concerts. It was a kind of a small venue with a very high stage, and
Yeah.
yeah. So we drive down there every once in a while to check some stuff out.
Yeah, a lot of the churches um got liberal in the 80s and started hosting Christian concerts,
Hmm.
or they would go to, notice that was a joke.
Yeah, I know. We got liberal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or they would host, or they would find venues, um, that they could go to if they were big enough. Um, and then there were always the traditional, oh God, they were so bad. The traditional touring singing groups that went around.
Yeah.
Um,
Complete nobodies,
and
right?
but ironically, there were a couple of them that were good. Um, one of them was, sorry, I have such memory blocks from that time, plus being
Yeah.
old. But yeah, there were a couple of really good bands they were more than just the normal playing, playing piano and playing guitar and singing glorified hymns.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we had all the Christian music that came through, and
Yeah.
it's funny
Ho
thinking back about how bad they were.
Yeah. How big was the church that you grew up in, like,
I want to
attendance-wise?
say we ran when things were good, we were in the 150s to 200.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds
Because
pretty
now
similar to,
it's I
yeah.
no, oh yeah, for that time in that area,
Mhm.
um, because again, you didn't have a lot of the mega churches. Um, you had First Baptist Church downtown, and I'm pretty sure they were huge. Um, and any churches that maybe were more centrally located than we were. But yeah, if you were my memory is that if you were running 200, that was the goal back then. And I remember all of God, you're bringing back some memories today. I remember the um, attendance drives and the frickin' chart on the wall.
Right. Yeah. No, we had these we had these commandment tablet looking things that they would post like, oh,
Yes,
attendance last Sunday was this and this week, and then they might say like how much money was raised. And then I get it, it
yeah,
wasn't the focus wasn't like I don't look back at it and say, oh, they were just money grubbing. It was kind of like an awareness and a transparency about like this
right.
is how much people gave, and this is how people are attending. I don't know that anyone said, next week we really need to get those numbers up to like 210.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's still a part of me that's not cynical. That it maybe was a little altruistic. I do
Well,
know
I
that. I
mean,
mean, you know this. Any given church, there's money, and the
yeah,
people that have the money want you to know that they have money.
yeah,
So
yeah. So I mean, and it does cost money to run literally anything.
yeah,
I mean, if it's a podcast or a church, I'm glad the podcasting's way cheaper than
yeah.
running a church and having a church building. Um, so, okay, so around 200 people, and you would identify that was pretty fundamentalist, right?
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah, meaning
Yeah,
hell,
when we went to
brimstone.
Germany, yeah, when we went to, I was in the Air Force, and when we got stationed in Germany, um, there weren't actually a lot of options, and I happened to be at an on-base store, and um, they must have had Christian books on the shelf at this store on the base. And I was flipping through one. And so somebody from this church saw me and was like, oh, good, fresh meat.
Mm,
And not like that.
yeah,
They were legit friendly.
yeah.
But,
But they
looking
recognize that you
back,
had an
it's,
interest, seeing what you were
yeah, they
flipping
could see that
through.
I had the
Yeah.
interest. And
Hmm.
then we ended up going to that church. And I didn't know anything. Like, they identified as independent fundamental Baptists. And they're like, okay, whatever.
Hmm.
And then you start getting introduced to like a whole different cast of characters,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that ended up being yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then, so tell me, so that was, and by the way, thank you for your service. My dad was, also served, not in the Air Force, but in the Army. So, yeah, thank you for that. And then tell me what happened after, post-military.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
What happened? Tell me about life like post-military for you. So like you come back from Germany and you come back to Oklahoma, I guess.
Um, no, after Germany, I was still in the military, and so we got stationed in Missouri at Whiteman Air Force Base,
Mhm. Yeah.
and there was a church pretty much right outside the gate that again identified as independent fundamental. And that's where you really start to go down the rabbit hole, because when you're independent fundamental in Germany, you're isolated.
Yeah.
Some of the missionaries come through raising money, and you get to meet them, and you're introduced to again the preachers that are. Did you ever hear of John R. Rice? He wrote the book on prayer.
I don't think I've heard
Um, uh,
him, but
um,
you know, added to
But
the show
anyway,
list.
it's so, and then there was used to be a little newspaper called the Flaming Sword, and they published all these. Oh yeah, I am not kidding you. This is a deep hole.
Yeah.
So this newspaper was called the Flaming Sword, and they would print all of these old sermons, um, going back to anyway, they do all the old sermons,
Hmm.
and so you knew them, but it was like kind of a disconnect, like everything was being in Germany.
Yeah.
Then when you get back to the US, then the Independent Baptist Fundamental Movement has actual presence. And then you have the conferences and every preacher and their cousin comes through your church, if you're especially if you're connected. Um,
And
and so
missionaries, probably,
yeah,
missionaries
yeah.
coming every, yeah.
Um, and so that the independent fundamental Baptist movement was a whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so when we got back to the States, we got more and more sucked into that ecosystem big time. And I don't know, again, if you don't know much about it, they are King James Bible only.
Okay. That
Um,
doesn't surprise me.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
King James Bible only, dresses only for women.
Oh.
Um,
Yeah, let's talk about that. Did you have any personal restrictions? And then let's talk about the women. And I give a side note that so I live in Kansas City, and which it has, there's all sorts of churches and stuff around here. It's a metropolitan area, but some woman did come up to my wife shortly after we moved to Kansas City, and was wearing a long jean skirt and hair up in a bun, and was chastising my wife for her. I think at first she started to invite her to church or whatever, and my wife was like, "I already attend somewhere," and then she got chastised for what she was wearing, which was not at all by any standard except for that one. Um, gratuitous.
yeah. Well, but
So
Kansas City, you're right there because Missouri was a pretty good sized hub for the IFB movement, and so you had big churches in Kansas City. That whole area, you had Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Texas, to a lesser extent Arkansas. But if you were in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, especially Kansas City and Missouri, you were in the hub. I mean, there were other places.
yeah.
Like ironically, kind of the flagship was First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana.
Okay.
But so they were like the mothership,
Yeah.
but
And then
the
everybody else is
Missouri,
just the
Kansas,
satellites. So
Oklahoma, Texas was an essential hub. We had it
yeah.
going on. So yeah, Kansas City, you would have run into them.
Okay. So, um, I presume. Well, what was your typical like approved dress, if you will, say for a man? Let's say man. And then like for women, we'll get into that afterwards. So I mean, was there anything abnormal? It's probably like normal stuff, right? Like I don't know, like shoes, pants. I mean, nothing was anything off limits for when an
Um,
IFB thought.
Not really. The the women it was always dresses. Um, you could get into some churches where they float with that a little bit.
Maybe show a
Um,
little ankle.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. um, and I was a pants guy back then anyway.
yeah.
Even to the point where, yeah, I wore pants all the time anyway, and I think it was a part of that. Our main restriction, I think, was it was looked down on if you weren't in a full suit on Sundays.
Yeah. Sunday
Um,
best.
yeah,
Full suit.
um, and I had to be at the top of my game because I was working on, I was either working towards or then actually was ordained, so I always had to be at the top of the game.
Yeah.
And then they didn't really want you listening or rating things that were outside of the system. So
Such as giving.
if I read other Christian books that were not inside the ecosystem, and I had a shelf full because I was always
Yeah.
a reader,
Yeah.
or if you listened to other Christian music, um, like and especially if you went off the deep end, which is um, and listened to just all of the different bands, not the Amy Grant type,
Oh,
but
yeah.
going off
Surely Amy Grant
the
was too much,
the
right?
Newsboys, the the, the Michael Tate just got caught.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like, that was, man, I've been an atheist for a while, but man, finding out Michael Tate got caught just recently, that was a little bit of a blow because the newsboys were the bomb.
yeah.
But see, if you were an independent fundamental Baptist and you listen to like the newsboys and all of that stuff,
That would been
we
you.
had, if people were coming over for dinner, we literally had to hide our CDs. We
Oh,
had,
but you had CDs, you sinner.
yeah,
Oh,
we had, see,
yeah,
I've always been just a fraction outside of whatever system I've been in,
yeah, yeah,
always.
yeah,
Even though on the surface I look like I'm really deep in, but I've always had this fringe side that's always exploring.
yeah.
And so we had CDs, and I always read other Christian books outside of the IFB field. And so that was my main restriction. Wasn't so much about dress, but it was about inputs that I
Yeah,
could get.
inputs, asking questions, for instance, right? Give me, do you have a favorite book from that time that was outside, that wouldn't have been accepted? You would have gotten a talking to, but still was within the realm of Christendom.
I'm trying to think who I did used to like back then. I used to read a lot of apologetics books.
Okay. Yeah.
So what was that one
Uh,
guy?
like, is
Um,
this part, would
oh,
that be acceptable? Or
see,
was that too far
R.C.
out?
Sproul. R.C.
Yeah.
Sproul was Calvinist.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and
he was
that
okay,
was
right?
there was a split. There was a split in IFB between how big of a Calvinist you could be.
Wow.
So, but yeah, R.C. Sproul, again, because I think he would have fit the mold for what he believed for a lot of
Hmm.
people,
Yeah. So, but
but
I mean,
because
is
he
he too
wasn't
far out?
inside the system. But
Right.
because he
Yeah.
wasn't inside the system.
Yeah.
I will say this, R.C. Sproul helped keep me in Christianity longer than I probably should have stayed.
I think that's fair.
He was one of the people that kept me in longer than I probably should have.
I liked R.C. Sproul quite a bit. I used to
Yeah.
listen to his podcast when I was commuting to work, and I would just really enjoy
Yeah. Oh,
how he
absolutely.
explored things. And he's yeah, he was a good thinker in that realm. I mean, obviously, I don't believe that now. I mean, it's not that I don't believe that he was a good thinker. I just don't believe I don't fall in line with his conclusions. Um,
Right.
you know,
Absolutely.
so
And I was drawn to that kind of thing. Because I was always a smart one in school. And I was the one back in Sunday school that memorized all the verses,
yeah.
that could, beat anybody at the sword drills.
I was gonna say,
Um,
I was getting ready to ask if I said Bible drill, would that mean
Bible,
anything
yep,
to
yep.
you? So yeah,
Yep. So I was always that guy.
yeah,
And so, but then again, that goes back to look at what I read in high school. I was a huge fan of Kurt Vonnegut,
yeah.
Brave New
That's
World,
that.
Aldous Huxley.
Those are
See, I was a
not.
huge fan of Vonnegut
Yeah, those are
and
outside
Aldous
quite a
Huxley
bit. So yeah, which is
and
now just real world now.
and all of that stuff. And so I was always going to, the thinking side. And that's always what got me in trouble with. That's why I was always in and out of a crisis of faith.
Yeah,
And I was that person, the type. I mean, I'm not unique in this, but good Lord, how many times did I go forward and either it was a
you dedicate your
combination.
life.
Sometimes you recommitted your life to Christ, and then sometimes you're like, I was never saved anyway. And so you
Right.
got saved for the first time, for the eighth time,
Yeah, yeah.
and so,
Which is
so like
funny to think about.
my crisis of faith always went, way back, but it was because
Yeah,
again, I was always on the fringe anyway. I was always reading and, it was just always weird.
Yeah, it is funny
Like,
to think about that now because I'm like, if you had a crisis of faith, trust me, you still believe that it was real. You know,
mm-hmm,
that's way different than you or I today, whenever, I mean, that's a complete opposite, right? You know, I
yeah,
mean, so if you thought you were saved, but maybe you weren't really, really saved, and now I got to rededicate my life, and then depending on where I go, maybe I get rebaptized, maybe I don't. But you
yeah,
know, all that matters is I go to the altar and I get down on my knees and I say, man, I'm really, really sorry this time, and I just need some
yeah.
guidance, and then I mean, I saw that happen a lot, Um, I don't think I ever rededicated my life to Christ. I was just like maybe once, but yeah, totally familiar with that. It's
Oh, no, see, because my version of Southern Baptist, we had the week long and the 2 week. Back in the day, it was 2 weeks. The revivals,
oh yeah, revivals, yeah, yeah,
and um, we were huge on the whole hellfire and scare you frickin' to death.
yeah,
Like the times that I woke up in the middle of the night with nightmares, kind of. So, and then they were so good at the psychology of the altar call
yeah, yeah,
that it was just like, oh no, I'm making sure. I'm so making sure.
yeah.
It was that bad.
How many more checks do I have to do to make sure, absolutely sure that
Oh,
I check it
absolutely,
all off, and
absolutely. Oh,
where am I
it's
at on the
yeah,
list? Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I think that Southern Baptist and then Independent Fundamental, I think that we would have been far more similar than
Mhm,
dissimilar. I'm hearing a lot of things that I totally like. Yep, yeah. I mean, in Janice Selby's book "Divorcing Religion," she talks about this idea of high control. And I was like, when I read that phrase, I was like, a high control religion. I'm like, yes, that makes so much sense to me, to where you have these written and unwritten rules, that are like, well, we don't do that. We don't read
mhm,
those books. We don't dress that way. We don't listen to this music. We don't drink. We don't go to places that sell alcohol. I don't know if you ever got that far. But you, whenever you reached out to me, you mentioned something that I'm very interested in, only because recently, my wife and I got to go to see AC/DC in concert, which is like kind of a bucket list thing for me, right? Because I go to a lot of concerts, and it's my hobby, and because I'm old and I don't have anything else to do, but but whenever we whenever we got there, there were street preachers outside with their
mhm,
megaphones yelling about things. And I may have yelled one thing back and then just kept walking. But I told my wife, I'm like, if we'd have gotten here 5 minutes earlier, I would have stopped and I would have
mhm,
said, you have 5 minutes to convince me that what you are yelling about is true. But I've always been kind of like, why do people do that? It's such a horrible approach. I mean, if you took like marketing 101, right? And you said, well, what's a good way to reach people that converts them, right? And I don't mean convert necessarily well, I do kind of mean it in this way, but I mean, you take a potential buyer and you take them to an actual buyer, right? What a terrible method, standing on a corner and yelling at people. And I have um, and I'll let you get to this here in a second. And, tell me all about it. But I had an experience in Kansas City where I was downtown on the plaza, and there was a street preacher, and I walked by him, and he said something to me. I'm like, no, 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 I'm with you. I believe that we believe the same thing. And he was like, oh yeah, you believe the same thing? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, like what? I'm like, well, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, Jesus died for our sins. And then I said, you know the drill. And he's like, you know the drill? And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, I'm just trying to like let you know that I get what you're saying. We're on the same page. I don't really agree with the whole street preacher thing, but that's you, not me. And after that conversation, I thought, man, how big is your audience? I mean,
Yeah.
your reach on this is like must be small. But yes, tell me, because you said that you have done some of this important
Oh,
work for the kingdom.
I was so into it.
Yeah.
Uh, so in my journey, like I said, I became an ordained pastor in the Independent Fundamental Baptist movement, and I went to Vegas to try to plant a church,
Okay. Sounds
and
challenging.
that went over about as well as you could imagine it went.
Yeah.
And so while I was there, because Vegas is a hub for street preachers because of the Strip, I met one of the kingpins and the whole street preaching movement. There were two at the time, and they had completely different approaches. And so like always, I fell in the middle of the two. I found a way to combine the two. You ever heard of Ray Comfort?
Yes.
Okay. So Ray Comfort was one,
Okay.
and he's like the not extreme if you've ever seen him. But then there's the guys like you met with the bullhorn, and they probably had the sign, and it
Um.
says, um, like whores and
Yeah.
and lukewarm Christians and homosexuals and
Yeah.
the whole list on the sign, and they've got the
Right.
bullhorn,
Yeah.
right?
Well, like Westboro Baptist Church was probably one of the most famous ones
Yeah, but
out of
they're a step.
Topeka.
Westboro is even farther. They're as far out
Yeah.
as you can go.
Yeah.
These groups do tend to peel back from. They're not full on Westboro, but some of
Yeah.
them are getting closer now.
Yeah.
But back in the day, they were not. They were bad. So anyway, I got hooked up with both groups again because I liked um, apologetics. I got introduced to Ray Comfort, but I can't even remember how I met the guy. Probably on the Strip, and the church plant was going badly, and so they invited me to go on a trip, and there was going to be um, not a concert, but a festival, all day festival at the Rose Bowl in California, Pasadena. And they invited me to go to that. So you get a belt with a big tool belt that you can slide the pole down into,
Yeah.
and uh, so you can walk and hold your flag.
Well, you got to have
And
stability for this. I mean,
yeah,
absolutely.
exactly, yeah.
I mean,
So the very first time, and you're scared to death. You're scared to death. But then as soon as that pole goes up and you have your first encounter, and you start talking, um, for me, it was an incredible rush.
right. Well,
It was an insane rush.
yeah.
Because I love public speaking, and good or bad, this was public speaking. But when you talk about it from a marketing standpoint, see, this is where you're a little off. From marketing, yes, it's a horrible idea, but we have something on the Christian side that marketing doesn't have. See, we're taught that if you just go out and speak the word, you're planting a seed. The
Planting
Holy
seed.
Spirit will water the seed. We don't have to
Yes.
worry about how our marketing takes place.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to get the seed planted, and then
Right.
the Holy Spirit waters the seed. So you can suck.
Yeah.
In hindsight, you could do the most abhorrent kind of seed planting.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you can pretty much take a leaf blower and blow seeds up your opponent's butt.
Yeah. But
But as long as the seed
you've
is
done
getting
your job.
planted,
You've done your
yeah,
job. You're just
as long
supposed
as
to
the seed
plant the
is getting
seed.
planted.
Right.
But
I'm not the
it was
cultivator.
such a rush, and so then I started hanging out with those guys. But even then, see, I was always the person, like I put Bible verses on my signs. I didn't do the whole list of sins thing. I never went to the extreme. I tried to be the balance to them. But we did everything. We preached on the Strip. We preached on the Strip on New Year's Eve, which is incredible. We went to all the festivals. We went to all the pride parades. Um, if there was a place where there was going to be a crowd, we were going to be there. And then somewhere along the line, I met Ray Comfort, and he used to have a weekend. He used to go out every weekend in Santa Monica, and they had a big promenade, and his style was completely different. And of course, you know him. He used to try to, his whole thing was atheism. But he had a completely different style than the people that I hung with.
Yeah.
And he would debate in Santa Monica all the time. And he lived in Bellflower at the time. And so I went and I met him in Bellflower, and I helped him out on Santa Monica. Um, and so, yeah, I was so deep into
Sounds like it.
doing into
Yeah.
doing that.
How
But it
many?
was but at the time it was such a rush, and you just felt like as long as you were getting the seed out there, you were doing the right thing.
Yeah. How many times a year do you think this probably happened for you?
Okay, what was that again?
How many times a year would you say that you probably went out and did the street preaching type thing? Was this an every weekend thing?
There
Or
it wasn't every weekend, but there were times that it was close.
yeah,
Um because even this is the tightrope I walked. You talked about restrictions and everything like this. Even the Independent Fundamental Baptist movement on the West Coast had a street preaching division and had like a whole big conference up in Northern California.
yeah.
And so I ran with all three crowds. You want to talk about having your brain go, I'm trying to juggle three different theologies.
That are only slightly different, I'm sure.
But the unifying core was the street preaching. I just loved it so much. I absolutely did. And sometimes at times it was every week, especially during the summer, because everybody staggers their pride parades. And for the record, to your audience, I am complete ally, so don't get the wrong
Same.
idea. We have
well, yeah.
we have so much pride decorations in our house that people would probably actually start asking questions. But going back to that, not that there's anything wrong with that.
Right,
like Seinfeld used to say.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, in the summertime, every city staggered their pride parade. So there was almost always a pride parade to go to. Music festivals were huge. And when I was living in Vegas, the Strip was right there.
Yeah.
So you could just go to the Strip anytime you wanted. Living near San Diego, you could go to downtown San Diego. It wasn't as good, so that's kind of when it started to fall off because I didn't have the audiences all the time. But yeah, I was into it all the time.
There is a performer coming to Kansas City, just another heavy metal band, really. Nothing that would, stand out necessarily, but this particular individual has been around for a while and is somewhat controversial, and I was on the fence about whether or not to go, but then I thought, there's a good chance there's going to be street preachers at this one. So I may go, and I may get that 5 minutes back that I didn't get with AC/DC,
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. We just went up to Disneyland for our anniversary a couple weekends ago.
Fine. Yeah.
And we always, we're Disney adults.
Yeah.
Okay. We're those people.
Yeah.
But,
not that there's
so we were
wrong
up there
that.
and we always get, yeah. Oh man, you don't know how much I want to be in Anaheim this weekend if you know who is there.
Yeah, I know who's there. Yeah.
But we always get a hotel about a mile away or so, within about a mile, and just walk it.
Sure.
And we found one recently. It's our favorite. We stay there every time now. And we literally ran into three guys that were apparently coming back from their street preaching chores, walking one way.
Yeah.
And I started laughing. And it was like we had to get there because we have the lightning lane pass. And so like you've got to get in and start getting your lightning lanes early or they all disappear. So like, plus we were hungry. And plus I have PTSD and I'm trying not to go down that road. But like, one of them was ahead of the others and they did walk up to me trying to hold out the track. And I said, look, I laughed. I said, I literally used to be you. It's
Quite
like,
literally, yeah.
I'm like, I had the bullhorn, I had the sign, I had the tracks. I literally used to be you. And there's no there. And they wanted to yell back and argue and do the whole thing. And I'm like, I'm just not there, dude. I'm not that kind of atheist. I explored that route, but I'm not that kind of atheist. I'm gonna tell you that there's no there. But
Yeah.
dude, I was more you than you are right now. There's literally nothing that you can do that's going to affect
This is
me.
this is the one of the things that I struggle with. To get a little older, I'm still young at heart, right? But maybe not so much in the beard and the back. Or definitely not the knees. Oh man, the knees. Anyway, but one of the things I struggle with is that I do see some pretty young people, including the churches that we went to before we left a year ago. Um, but they're just so sure. They're just absolutely so sure that what they believe is
Yeah.
right, just as you were so sure that what you believed was right. 100%. Like they're always 100%. I ask this question: how sure are you that your faith is correct? Muslim, Jew, Christian, doesn't matter. Jehovah's Witness, all of them, 100%. Right? I'm sure you were 100% right, just like they think that. And then you and I were a little older, and we've like had some life experiences, and we've
Mm-hmm.
asked some questions that led us to maybe think a little differently about thoughts that we were raised with. So um, I know that this is more of a process. So you want to tell me about I don't believe that there's probably one single event that smacked you upside the head, but there was
No.
probably a single event at the end that was like, well, no, I think we're done here. So you want to tell me a bit about your deconversion process?
Yeah, it was a process. And I would even go so far to say that when you run into people that are 100% sure, the more sure they are, the more that they're hiding doubts underneath.
Right.
Um,
Oh,
I
interesting.
think I now in the current environment, I there's so much brainwashing now. I don't know if that is going to hold as much, but just I tend to think that the more sure you run into somebody, the more that they're hiding stuff underneath.
Oh, is that any
So
different than how we were? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
we were
yeah,
pretty sure, and I think
yeah,
it's just more emboldened, I think, these days, more
yeah, yeah,
outwardly
yeah.
vocal.
So like for me, um, I was always reading, and this probably speaks to that. I was always reading apologetics and different things like that. I think I was always deep down trying to assure myself. And so in high school, even though by this time we're into the mid 80s, okay, early to mid 80s, and we're getting more liberal for what the 80s are.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to movies all the time. I'm listening to rock music. Met a girl who's now my wife miraculously, and she got pregnant when we were both 17. She turned 18 pretty quickly after that. I was still 17. We got married.
That's
I
what you
kid you
do.
not, my parents, we were in Oklahoma, and you would think this wouldn't be true, but even in Oklahoma, I was 17. My parents had to sign off on my marriage license for me to get married.
Yeah.
So because of that, we're a teen pregnancy. We're becoming less and less welcome at the church I grew up in. And so
Yeah.
we stopped going to church for a while. And then I joined the Air Force. So that got me out of the church ecosystem for a little bit. Then I joined the Air Force and um, started drinking during not basic training, tech school. And that continued on. We got stationed in Vegas. Absolutely the worst thing you can do to a young person is get me stationed in Vegas, um, with all the gambling and all the drinking.
I've
But it
heard
got
there's
to the
some there.
point,
Yeah.
yeah, but it got to the point that it was like, okay, it's time to make a choice. It's either drinking with your buddies every weekend or staying married. And I always joke about whether or not I made the right choice. Hey, we just made 41, so we're doing
Right.
great.
Yeah.
Um,
Great. Great.
so then we went back to, so part of that process was going back to church. We started going to like the chapel on base. And then I'm not sure if we ever found a church. I think it was always the chapel on base. Um,
I mean, it's convenient. It's
and
right
then that
there.
got
So
us, so yeah. And then that got us to Germany and that got us into the IFB. So that got me drugged back into church again. But then, a big one was straight preaching. I was doing Earth Day. And not that there's anything particularly sinful about Earth Day. It was just I knew there was going to be a big crowd. So I'm doing Earth Day at Balboa Park in San Diego. And the people at Earth Day knew their stuff.
yeah.
I thought I was sharp. I was the Ray
Wait
Comfort
a minute. Are you talking
of
about the people that were with you, or the people that
no the
you were
people we were
talking
trying to
to?
convert.
Right.
The
Yeah.
people
Okay.
we were trying to convert. Um, I had a framework, mostly thanks to Ray Comfort, and also because of yeah. So I thought I could take anybody, and like I said, I was pretty well read, R.C. Sproul and all of that.
Yeah.
But the people that were attending Earth Day were, oh my God, they were on their game, and I heard so many arguments that day that I had never heard. That you don't hear. Come on. If you're going to a rock concert, how many people are going to argue back? Right. And be coherent. All
I
right.
screamed,
If
I
you're going
yelled an
to a pride,
expletive and kept walking. So
yeah,
that's what I did. So
because but see, so for the most part, they're trying to get into the concert. They don't care. They're drinking. You go to a pride parade, they're going to flash their boobs or their
yeah, they're there
genitals
to
at you, right? They're
have
not
fun
going to
and
argue
celebrate.
with you.
Yes. Right.
Right. But when I went to Earth Day, these people argued and knew their stuff.
Yeah.
And that was the first huge crisis of faith. There were several things. The other part of that process was I've always believed that Jesus was a liberal. And so like I've always tried to do things to serve people. So like at my church in Missouri, I ran a bus route. Okay.
Picking people up for church. Yeah.
And one time we pulled up to a stop and two of the kids we were there to pick up were ready to go. And there were a couple other kids that were like their friends, brothers, sisters, whatever. And they were like, well, can they come too? And I was like, sure, they can. And they were barefoot. And the people in our church freaked out that I brought barefoot kids to church.
Kind of missing the mark there.
There were two streams.
Yeah.
There was, how does the church actually act like what the Bible says?
Right.
And then there's meeting people who can argue that the Bible is BS. And so those two streams are now coming together. And the Earth Day one really shook me to my core.
What about Earth Day?
Yeah.
What about it? Was it about environmental facts? Or what? I don't know. What was something?
Just the way that they had argued against the Bible and against different things like that. I didn't have answers for, and then even when I went home, I didn't have answers for. Mm-hmm. So I'm digging in and trying to find answers, and found some that kept me going for a little while longer. Eventually, I stopped doing street preaching. I can't even remember why. But I moved more towards the progressive side of Christianity.
Did kids have anything to do with that? Like, I mean, for me, like kids, just having kids, you just become a lot less active in all sorts of things. So I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like like I said, there was always there were two streams of how the church acts compared to what Jesus actually said. And then the outside that was, is this stuff even true or not? And I started doing the progressive side, and we joined a church in Oceanside, California that was not IFB. I think they were technically Southern Baptist, but they weren't. They were just a church.
Non-denominational.
And through that, I started doing homeless ministry.
Yeah.
And I was actually running a service and feeding on Sunday morning.
That's awesome.
Well, this is how wild I was. I 2 different times I did a sermon based on Crazy Train from Ozzy Osbourne, and I did a sermon based on Time from Pink Floyd.
Awesome. Yeah. Wow. That is progressive. Yeah.
So
Well,
you're starting to see me starting to move, like I'm on the way out the door, right?
yeah, but you're
So
ahead of the curve whenever it comes to that stuff because that's more
yeah,
common nowadays. You see that, if you go to a pretty non-denominational church these days, it's not unheard of for them to bring in cultural
yeah.
references because, well, that's what we're exposed to all the time. You might as well be relatable, right?
So so we did that for a while, and then the person who ran the shelter actually shut us down, probably for the Ozzy Osbourne sermon. So at that point, but again, it was the whole, how does the church on a whole that we're members of respond to what we're doing there? And there were a few people that were really good and they helped us all the time, but for the most part, it was like 98% didn't care. And so that stream is getting wider. And then again, I'm reading all the time, and I came across I started studying the idea of hell. And I can't remember the title. I thought about looking it up, but there was a book, Why Hell Isn't True or something.
Okay.
And I never read any of, I want to say his name was George MacDonald, but everybody in the Why There's No Hell movement always seemed to cite George MacDonald. And he was kind of a universalist.
Okay. Right.
So now I'm moving down the progressive path. Now I'm kind of universalist.
Yeah.
There's no
Everybody's going to
hell.
go. Yeah. Jesus
But
paid the
once you
price for
get rid of
everybody.
hell,
Yeah.
once you get rid of hell, all bets are off.
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, I'm in the progressive side because I truly think there's got to be a side of Christianity that believes in helping people. And then 2016 happened. I
I'm
was,
trying to think about what
yeah,
happened in 2016. Oh, right.
I
A
was
major political event.
by that point, I think I was leaning more agnostic. I had gone through, like I said, hell's gone. I'm into progressive. But then it's like, we're not in church doing anything because there's no churches around that you can find. Just a whole lot of different things happened. So at this point, probably for about a year or so, I was borderline agnostic. I was in the, and the, by late 2015, early 2016, I'm agnostic,
Yeah.
but I'm not telling anybody. Like
Yeah.
I'm agnostic, but I mean,
Yeah.
but at the same time, we're not going to church anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's that
You
gray
don't really have,
area that
yeah.
I can live in that gray area. Like, oh, well, we're not going to church. You just haven't found the right one, blah, 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 blah. And
Yeah.
in my head going, no, that's not why. And then 2016 happens. And the other thing that happened in my journey was that there was a book called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. And it's all about your self-talk. And he gets into neuroscience about how we're programmed from day one. And the whole concept of neuroscience that appealed to me so much. Like, that got to my intellectual side and realizing that we're programmed every single day by every single input from day one. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And so Shad Helmstetter is what really pushed me over the edge. Ironically, he's actually a believer. I know 2 people that are huge in the self-talk movement, and they still believe in God. And I'm like, you literally missed the point. The author of the book and the
Yeah.
person who studied neuroscience still believes that there's a God out there.
Yeah.
But
Well,
he's the one who pushed me over into agnostic.
there's maybe hope.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. So that's how I got pushed fully into agnostic, was learning about neuroscience and brain, which I'm
Yeah.
still fascinated by today.
Yeah.
So then 2016 happens and you're watching it unfold.
Yeah.
And the night of the election, and
The
then
lack of compassion.
the follow-up
Wow.
is something like 83% of evangelicals voted for Trump. And that was paired up with the neuroscience side, because I'm going along now believing, you're programmed from day one, and your programming can change, but you believe what you believe because of how you're programmed. And so you're not a Christian. You've heard this argument too. You're a Christian because you're born in America. You're a Hindu because you're born
Yeah,
in
it's an accident
India.
of
Right?
geography. Yeah.
But that's all tied to neuroscience, right? So when you start seeing 83% of evangelicals voting for Trump, you're like, this is bullshit.
Hmm.
It was confirmation of the neuroscience. None of this is actually true. It's just what you were programmed to believe.
And is now
So
being
even then,
coming out.
so
Yeah.
then, so yeah, so even then, so then I'm more now I'm into the atheist camp, and I'm reading more. And the funny thing is about this whole process, I never studied atheists. I never read any of the big atheists like Dawkins or any of those guys to get to where I was. So it's not like Hawkins converted me. I
Hmm.
never read any of that crap. I
Yeah.
never crap. I don't mean crap. You know
No,
what
I
I'm
get
saying?
it. I get it
Yeah,
because
but
those were evil. Those were bad.
I
Yeah.
never read
Yeah.
any of the four horsemen of the new atheism. I never read them.
Yeah.
But after I moved into the atheism camp, then I'm like, okay, now I got to know what the hell do I even believe, right? So
Right.
I read a few of them then. So then it was after that, and I can't even remember the year. I'm sorry, but it was after Trump was elected. Um, my wife's dad got cancer, and they live back in Oklahoma. We live in California, and the hospital screwed up and made things much worse. Um, they gave him chemo while he had an infection, and um, so they made things much worse, and things were going down very, very fast. And so Stacy is doing everything she can to find a flight to get back to Oklahoma to see her dad before he dies. And I take her to the airport, and she's on that airplane. And the whole time, even while because she couldn't get a flight right away, so she was making me meals to put in the freezer, um, so I'd have something to eat for a little while she was gone and all this. And plus to keep her mind occupied about the fact that her dad is probably going to die,
Absolutely.
right? So she's staying busy. And the whole time before she gets on the airplane, and then especially driving back, because we're about 40 minutes away from the San Diego airport. So I'm driving back from the airport, and like this whole time, I'm like, okay, whatever's out there, this is your chance. This is your chance. If Stacy makes it home to see her dad and is able to say goodbye, I'm not in. Kind of like you said about having evidence. It's like
Right.
not necessarily in, but I'll go back and take a look.
Yeah. Sure.
Because and this goes back to my Christian roots. I'm like, look, if I'm God, okay, I mean, I love my wife, and if I held the power of life and death in my hands, she's getting home on time.
Exactly.
Me as a human,
Yes.
okay, me as a human, I love my wife to the ends of the earth and back. And if I have the power of life and death in my hands, she's getting home on time. And you're supposed to be this big, great thing. And you're supposed to love all of us. And my father-in-law died while she was still in the air.
So sorry.
And I'm like, you can fuck all the way off. And if on the incredibly outside chance that there's something instead of nothing afterwards, then I'm going to tell you to your face
Yeah.
also.
Right.
And so that was the final straw. I was already there, but like I said, when that happened, I'm like, look, if I had power of life and death in my hands and I love Stacy, then she's getting home on time. You do actually theoretically hold the power of life and death in your hands, and you do theoretically love Stacy. And my father-in-law dies on the plane. While she's on the plane, you can just fuck off. And so that was the final straw.
But you and I, with our interest in apologetics and then the background that we have, you can probably already hear the counter arguments like, well, that was Satan, that was, allowing you to,
Yeah.
to be God allowed Satan to test you, to build your
Yep.
faith. God does things that we don't understand, for the greater good, all that bullshit. And it's like,
And that's why I don't, and that's really why I don't tell that story very often. When
yeah,
people ask me how I became an atheist, I talk
hmm
about all the other stuff.
yeah.
And, but the nail in the coffin, I usually don't bring up for that very reason,
Well,
because it's an easy attack.
if that would have been the
It's a,
first thing that happened, though, that probably wouldn't have sealed the deal because, like we talked about, it was a process.
no,
You had
no,
things here
if
and
we were
there.
still, yeah, if we were still deep in that movement, we would have fallen for all those excuses.
Sure,
God works
absolutely.
for mysterious ways,
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah. Every excuse in the book, we would have fallen for all of that.
yeah. I,
And
I
that's
think
like
it's
I said,
funny.
I know it's an easy angle to attack,
Yeah,
but it is what it is.
yeah. Oh,
And
that's
so,
why
like I
it's
said,
used.
if
It's an
people,
easy angle.
when, yeah, whenever I talk to people about why, but it was like I said, when people, I don't talk about it a lot to people, but if people do ask, how did you go from this to this? I always talk about all the other reasons, and I almost never bring that up
Yeah.
because it's an easy angle. But the reality is, it is. That was the last one.
Well, if you have anyone in your life that you care about to the point that you would like take a bullet for them,
Hmm. Yeah,
then it comes very difficult to reconcile how a triomni, meaning all powerful, all knowing, so you have to try anyway. You get my point. That he can do anything he wants to, right? And supposedly he loves us so much that he sent his son Jesus to die on the cross for our sins. Great, that's fantastic. How are you going to help me when I'm really in pain, like
hmm,
suffering? Like, what is the point of this needless suffering?
hmm,
Um, for oftentimes people that didn't ask for it. You said that was a mistake. It's like, well, again, I can hear the arguments, well, God didn't do that, people did that. And I'm like, no, actually, if you believe that God controls everything, he totally did that.
yeah, yeah,
I can't imagine, my kids might do something that I disagree with. I'm unhappy with that they didn't follow my instruction, whatever. But I would never think that their punishment should be so disproportionate to
right,
that infraction, right? I
yeah,
mean, like, well, I don't believe in you. Okay, hell. Or I don't believe in you. Okay, sickness, cancer, or I've waddled in my faith and I listen to I listen to the Bee Gees. So okay, fine. Well, I mean,
yeah,
clearly, you deserve to be in pain. It's ridiculous.
yeah.
It doesn't make any sense for someone that supposedly loves you.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. It's like the problem of pain has always been a thing. I mean, C.S. Lewis wrote the book, and suffering's always been a thing. But see, and this was my point too, was like, look, I'm not even asking you to keep him alive. Like, I know
Yeah,
people have to die. Duh,
right.
I'm from the Ray Comfort camp. Our thing was always 10 out of 10 people always die. I understand people have to die.
Yeah,
I'm not even asking you to like cure them.
yeah,
I'm just saying my wife will be there in 3 fucking hours. Don't kill him in that time frame.
right. Yeah.
You know? It's like, uh, so, like I said, I wasn't even trying to be selfish to the
hmm
point of, oh, I understand people are, like, I don't want any of my life to die ever. I just want my wife to be able to say goodbye. Oh, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And and if it was a test, um, what lessons am I to learn from that?
No,
What?
it's like, who does
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Again, that's
Masochist.
why it's like, no, and that's why I come down on the side of, even if I'm wrong now, I will I will tell it. Have you seen the new Superman movie yet, by the way?
All right. So no, I haven't.
Okay, so I won't spoiler alert with it, but
I am, yeah, don't spoil it for me because I'm hoping to take the family
well,
to
when
today actually because I wasn't going to see it because I'm not a big Superman fan. He's like the like
Yeah.
of all the superheroes,
No.
I'm not a fan. But there
Yeah.
was so much outroar.
Yeah.
Like Dean
It's
Cain
good.
really sold me. Like after Dean
Yeah.
Cain
Oh,
said it's
yeah.
too woke, I'm like,
So
fuck, I got to go see this
the,
movie then. I mean, just
there,
like Sinners.
there's a scene in that movie with Guy Gunn. So anybody who's listens to this podcast and sees Superman with Guy as the Green Lantern later, you'll know
Hmm.
exactly what I'm talking about. But let's
Yeah.
just say if I'm wrong about all of this and there isn't it when I'm gone, I will, because like you said, if it's a test, that's an effed up test, and I will tell it to its face.
Yeah.
So when you see a certain scene, and anybody who listens to the podcast, you just look at all the Guy Gunn scenes in this, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Okay. Well, Hitchens said something similar toward the end of his life because Hitchens got cancer and then he was, he had a he had a prolonged, death. And he was asked in an interview, like, well, what if you die and you find yourself standing before God? What would you say? And I'm going to paraphrase here because I'm not going to get it right at all, but it was essentially to the point of like, man, you did a terrible job of trying to convince me. Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
didn't provide me enough stuff. And if you're God and you know what it is to convince me, then you failed.
yeah.
So,
Oh, absolutely.
but that's exciting for me. I'm excited to go see Superman for the first time since the '80s. So
Yeah. Oh, Stacy's more of a Superman fan. I was always in the Batman Green
same.
Lantern camp.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and big, not even Green. I like Green Lantern, but I also like Green Arrow
Okay,
because my thing
yeah.
was always I want like real people who had to have and the 80s, 70s, 80s Spider-Man where he had to make the wrist web shooter. I
Yeah.
was always into the guys who were superheroes, but they had to invent their own tools.
Yeah, they had gadgets. So fun toys.
But even Green Lantern, he's a normal guy and he got the ring. I thought Green Lantern was cool as hell. So my favorites were always Green Arrow, Green Lantern,
Yeah,
Batman, and Spider-Man.
yeah. So
Um,
so that's
I
20.
read the Superman comics, but Stacey's huge into it. So we've seen every movie, every series.
Yeah.
I saw all the movies even back then, even the horrible Superman 4 with Nuclear Man.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I remember that one. Yeah. It was bad, but sure. But isn't that the one where Superman splits and he gets like a bad Superman and a good Superman? That's actually fairly interesting, to see
Yeah,
Superman hanging out in a bar getting drunk. That's pretty funny.
yeah.
Um,
But this one is good. This one
yeah.
is good.
So, your father-in-law passed away in 2017?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's about right.
Yeah, okay. And then so since then, 2025, it's
Actually, it was more like
almost.
20. It was more like actually 21 or 22. It's been more recent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So since then, what's life like for you now? I mean, I presume that you've probably don't share many of the same friendships or social circles that you used to. So what do you do now to, just know people, that are more like you?
Um. Well, because of my PTSD and other personality issues, um, I don't really develop friendships anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and so, and like with work, I've always tried to keep work and real life separate. Like there's a group of people at work that they do everything together, even after they're off the clock. They're like, it's crazy. You see them post on social media, and I'm like, what is wrong with you people? But so I always kept my my personal and my work life separate anyway. But I
Yeah.
always had work friends, kind of. And then so yeah, if I wasn't in part of a church, really, I don't have a real social circle. Um, and so it's always been mostly Stacy and me. And she works as an assistant to the manager here on the apartment complex we're at. And so she knows people outside of that. For a while, she was in Jazzercise and she knew people inside of that. For me, I'm mostly content with just being a loner. And so if I have Stacy in my life, I'm pretty good to go. It's like, um, I'm like, every once in a while we'll hang out with other people and it's fun to talk. I'm a talker. I mean, once I get around people, I love to talk.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but at the same time, that's like my attitude is like, okay, I've got Stacy. I'm that's pretty much my circle. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I heard a
Um,
term a few years back called an extrovert. And whenever I heard this, I was like, holy crap, I think that's me. Because an extrovert is someone comfortable floating between the worlds of being
yeah,
extroverted, but then I'm sorry, ambivert. That's the word I'm looking for. Ambivert. So
yeah,
like being
yeah,
ambidextrous, you're comfortable being either extroverted or introverted. And like, man, I can talk to anyone. I was a trained journalist, and so you have to go in cold and talk to people and ask questions, and sometimes it's really hard to get them to talk, and then other people like you are super easy. It's nice to have a easy flowing conversation.
yeah.
But then
Well,
i'm
and that's the
i'm
thing
per-
too.
perfectly fine being by
Yeah,
myself, and
yeah,
I'm
that's
not
the thing
bothered by
too.
that at
Is like,
all.
yeah, when I'm and I will be like the clown. You know, I mean, come on, look at the shirt. I'm always trying to be I'm always
Yeah,
trying to be the one that gets some kind of attention.
yeah,
I'll make the jokes even though they're eventually inappropriate, um, and boisterous and outspoken. In a group sometimes, but then, like I said, if I'm able to just hang out, and by having Stacy around, if she wants to be in the other room
yeah,
working out, working out to a video, and I'm in here, you know, studying whatever I'm studying or doom scrolling, dissociating because of my PTSD and the current environment. As long as she's just in the other room, it's like I said, I'm great.
yeah. And we don't have to speak too much about her beliefs, but did you guys wrestle with any kind of disconnect as you were on your journey? Like, are you guys in line? I guess so, since you're still together, and
Yeah,
you're
we
probably not.
I don't think she would fully. I don't think she'd ever come out and like use the title,
Yeah.
use the label. Um, but she let like the funny thing is she is not a church. She was not a church kid. She
No.
started going to church because of me.
Oh, I see.
And she was the first person to look back and call what we were in the independent fundamental Baptist movement a cult.
Yeah.
I was always the one that was like, well, yeah, it was bad. But she was literally the first one to, she would go, we were in a cult, damn it. But so there are places where we're like, we, we're like right. I think belief wise, we're in the same camp, but I think we would just express it and label it differently. And like I said, where she was the first one to say we were in a cult, and it took me a long time to come around to actually using that label.
Yeah.
Um, and on the other hand, I was very quick to, not quick, but I was more open to adopting the actual label atheist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. My
so
wife is similar. She wouldn't label herself as atheist. She'd be
yeah,
more comfortable with an agnostic label. I mean, Ricky Gervais has said something to the point that, well, there's really agnosticism kind of doesn't matter because you still don't believe.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, so, but I think it's just that you're less sure of your. Is it that you're less sure of your unbelief, or is it just that maybe you're just not comfortable with the stigma? I think
yeah,
that actually has
yeah.
a
I
lot
think
more to
it's
do with
I
it.
think it's that,
You
and
know.
I think it's this as well. You talked about influences. I can't believe I forgot about this. The biggest influence, because it ties to the answer to this question, and my wife, Ricky Gervais, The Invention of Lying.
Okay, I've heard of it.
You have got to watch. I tell people all the time. They ask me what made me eventually become an atheist. You have got to see the movie, The Invention of Lying. And I talk about evangelism, how it's planting seeds and that seed grows. The
hmm
Invention of Lying by Ricky Gervais
Yeah,
planted the seed that made me who I am today.
yeah,
And part of the point of that was that you want to believe that you're going to see your loved ones again someday.
yeah,
And if my wife is still in that camp, like we don't really believe in God, but you still kind of want to see your loved ones again someday. I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with that,
Yeah.
you know, but but so there's I would, if I had to say, there was a that was probably the camp right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas I'm more of, and that also goes to the fact that I've never been close to almost anybody outside of Stacy. Like, I was estranged from my dad the last year and a half of his life. And it was partly because I asked about, before we moved over to the one house and started going to Parkland at 7. I said, when we lived at this other house, did we go to church over there too? And my dad said, kind of yes, but he also kind of blew it off. And I mean, he blew it off in the way that Trump is trying to blow off the Epstein files.
Yeah.
um,
Well, that's not working out very well. So,
and so so it was kind of after that that I we just stopped talking, and then all of a sudden he got sick and he died. Like, I always thought maybe we would get back together again eventually, and then we didn't. So, like, I've never been super close. The only death that really bothered me was my grandmother when I was a teenager. You talk about Falls Creek in one of the messages. Um, I, um, I celebrated, quote unquote, because this is audio, celebrated the death of my grandmother happened while I was at Falls Creek one year. And it hit me so hard. It was
oh,
such a weird It was
yeah.
such a weird thing to get hit with the anniversary of my grandmother's death and being at Falls Creek. That was a
Yeah.
completely weird experience. So, like, honestly, since I was like 16,
Yeah.
I don't think I've really um cared. I mean, for lack of a better word. Like, okay, my mom's death hit me hard.
Yeah.
But then I'm not the kind of person that, like, missed her and sees her sitting on my bedpost at the end of the bed kind of a thing. Like, you want to talk about weird. I was a ordained pastor. I performed my mother's funeral.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
you want to talk about weird,
And it
and I
didn't bother you.
lost it.
So,
Like
yeah.
I lost it big time. Her death affected me. My grandmother and my mother, which again is ironic because I didn't really feel close to my mom growing up. And um but but outside of those two, like, I'm not the kind of person that's like, I've got this whole gang of people I'm waiting to meet
Right.
at the pearly gates,
Yeah.
anyway.
And if I could do
So
one thing real
I
quick.
wouldn't fall in that camp.
Yeah.
But I mean, Stacy's lost people on her side, and I could understand if she was hoping that, maybe we will see them all again someday.
I mean,
So yeah,
it's a thing that we want because we love these people and we miss them. And, it's the same. My parents are deceased, and I even this week, because they've been on my mind. My dad passed in January, and so he was on my mind this week. And it's summertime. Summertime at mom and dad's house was always just the best. I had a summer birthday and they had a pool, and like, could you ask for anything more? And like, I had a dream that was like, it was just me in the house, but it was all empty. And that was it. It was just like 5 seconds that I remember of just, seeing the kitchen and the dining room. And that's it. And that's just because, but again, mental things, right? I've been thinking about it this week. And when I'm not asleep, I've been thinking about this consciously. And then I fall asleep and I have a little short dream. And it doesn't mean anything. No, it means that I remember. And that's good because I remember the good things and the
yeah,
good
yeah,
times. And I'm totally cool with that. I should do something, let the listener understand that Falls Creek is a church camp that is down in Oklahoma that you and I had been talking about online and it came up
yeah,
because of the church camp flooding. We started, talking about flooding and church camps, and then since you were from Oklahoma, I just had to ask, be like,
yeah, yeah,
"Hey, did you ever go to
absolutely.
Falls Creek?" Because I went once, and my limited memory of that time, just because I only went once, it wasn't like I went every year or anything. It was fun. I was like, oh, this is like a big a big camp that was very, I don't know, it was just exciting. I'll have to Google map it and see what it looks like today.
Yeah,
But
and that was one of the
yeah,
places that I've rededicated my life.
sure, 18 times, but yeah. You know, I'll be honest. We had some youth group come up from Oklahoma to our church, and they stayed for like a week or whatever. And I don't even remember why they were there. We might have been building an addition to the church, and people came up to help, which was pretty common in the Baptist, ecosystem. I think where churches would help out other churches as long as you believe the same way they did. But yeah, there was a girl that came up and I liked her. And then, and then they were like, well, we could go down to Falls Creek where those guys are from. I'm like, yeah, let's go, so, but nothing happened with the girl. She, forgot about me by
Yeah,
the time I got down there. But yeah, but it was a cool camp. And if there's anything I could have, in this world, I wouldn't mind, a camp like that, but it would only be for me. I don't want
yeah,
anybody else to come. Just my own personal reserve, kind of like Wool Rock, if you are familiar with Wool
yeah,
Rock. Yeah. So, but well, this has been great and fantastic. Fantastic. Let me mark that so that way I can clip out this terrible blunder. Uh, this has been a really good conversation, and I've really enjoyed it. And I'd be open to talking more about some crazy ass fundamentalist things in the future. If after I go to my concert, maybe whenever I lead up to the concert, I could
yeah,
hit you up and give me some talking points.
yeah.
About.
But like I said, don't forget about seeing the invention of lying for sure.
Okay,
It's a good
I've
one.
made a note. Yeah. So, if there was one thing that a street preacher could be told, to maybe get them to think, some question, some statement. Um, I don't know. You got any pointers for me?
I'm trying to think back because it wasn't just one thing. Like it was just the whole course of the day. Like your armor will hold up for
So long.
even if it's like you said 5 minutes. I
Hmm.
think most people their armor will hold up for 5 minutes. But for me, when I did um, Earth Day at Balboa, it wasn't just one thing. It was just the onslaught. It
Okay.
was the buildup over the course of the day. Um, but I know in my journey, for me, once um, hell is gone, pretty much all bets are off. Um, and but so many of these guys out there, I was kind of the exception. So many of these guys that are out there, if you're talking to them and if you're debating them, and even if in your mind you beat them,
Yeah.
in their mind you didn't,
Yeah.
and in their mind you're just another notch in their belt. You're a badge of honor. If there was like the whole Boy Scout thing and they could get merit badges, you would be just another merit badge to them.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, yeah, I think cumulatively you might say something.
Uh-huh.
Um, but like I said, I will say this. My guess is most of these guys probably don't have a framework for arguing about the resurrection. Um,
Yeah. It's just
because I
accepted.
know at the time I
Yeah.
didn't,
Hmm.
but even that I developed one. Eventually I developed one and but like I said, I don't think there's one thing that you can say. I think you can plant the seed.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I'm not thinking that I'm going to get someone
no,
to
absolutely.
deconvert on the spot, and then say, well, will you stay home on Sunday next time? But I do want people to engage the brain that nature gave them, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and learn and just start asking some things,
Yeah.
man. Like just ask
I
some
don't think you
questions.
can go after, yeah, I don't think you can go after the Bible because I know that's always the tack everybody takes. Even, every atheist group is always against, going directly at the Bible.
I think you can
And
if
they're
you're
so used to
Calvinist.
that. Yeah. They're so used to that. You
Yeah.
have to, you have to flank them. um, so it's, like I said, it's you
Well,
just
I think you
yeah,
probably could
don't make
because
it if it comes across as an out if they think it's an attack on the Bible, they know how to handle that. If you're outflanking them and you're coming at a different direction that doesn't actually feel like an attack on the Bible, you
yeah,
might get somewhere.
yeah. I'll have to think about that because I mean, for me, the concept of hell was just like the last thing to go. It wasn't. It was the last hurdle in the sense that I had a fear of it, but already had pretty much. It was kind of weird. It was like, well, I don't think I believe in God anymore, but then what do I do about this hell thing? And so it was kind of
Exactly.
like the last
Yep.
thing to go. But there are but what kind of really the nail in the coffin for me was just learning that the Bible isn't the oldest book. That there were
Yeah.
books
Yeah.
that came before it. There were stories that came before it that the Bible pulled from, and then they
Yeah.
were
Oh,
just
absolutely.
they were
And it,
revamped,
but
like
yeah,
Superman.
and I think you can keep planting that seed on along that line as well.
Yeah, yeah,
But man, they're so used to the whole attack on the Bible angle, um, and even the hell angle. You see it now with the MAGA.
yeah,
They take this whole concentration camp, and the cruelty side of MAGA
yeah,
is again, it's a merit badge to them.
yeah.
And so hell is a merit badge again to the straight preacher.
You can't ignore the similarities
So you can't,
between.
so you, yeah, you
Yeah,
can't talk about how cruel hell is because that's the point.
right. Oh yeah, it's true.
The cruelty is not a bug; it's a feature.
It is a feature. Yeah, for that belief system. Yes. There's lots of work to be done. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
but and I think you can get there if you just have some conversations, try not to yell at each other. It's easier to do to have conversations like this. We're talking face to face,
yeah,
versus, keyboard warriors, and we're all keyboard warriors, let's face it, at on social media or some internet forum or whatever, it's like, oh, you're wrong. Here's why you're wrong, and blah, and then, go on your own way. Yeah, I think it's important to have a dialogue. And I did come across this really interesting Instagram account called The Enemies Project, where they have a moderator sit down between two people of like deeply opposing views. So like MAGA and non-MAGA, and they have a conversation, which is really fascinating.
yeah,
I Because the thing about having this kind of conversation, especially if you're in person, which this from your street preaching, is that there's this uncomfortableness that comes internally whenever you have to address somebody that you're looking in the face, in the eye, and you have to know how you're going to do that and how you're going to deal with it. And if you're immature, you're gonna flex and fight physically, maybe, or yell.
right,
And if you're mature, you would try to work your way through that uncomfortableness to try to have a dialogue. And I just don't think that you're gonna get that online for the most part, whenever you're just typing back and forth at each other.
yeah,
So I think the social aspect is important.
right,
So here, hopefully we bring it back to the 90s and the 80s, and where we have to talk more in real time, to
yeah,
people. And so, but we'll just have to see how it all shakes out over time. So,
yeah. And who knows, doing something like this might make me more open to trying to find people who actually want to have a conversation and not just want to argue.
yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I like having conversations. I'll still stand up for my points. You have to stand up for your
Right.
points. And I'm totally uh of the opinion that neither one of us are 100% right.
Yeah.
But at least we're having dialogue and talking about it. I mean, I would love to sit down with a sane MAGA person and have a discussion, because I have questions, and
Yeah.
just because of things like cruelty. Like, well, I might say, like, okay, I agree with you. Yes, we have laws that about documented people here and that you have to follow them. But do we have to throw in cruelty with that? Is there a sane
Hmm.
way that we can take care of this? Because I mean, this has been talked about since Reagan. Like the problem of immigration has been a problem that
Hmm.
has went through multiple presidents that did nothing. So is it possible we could find a way? I won't say nothing. I think Obama did some pretty good stuff with like the Dreamers and things of that nature. Um, but can we talk about it? About how do we fix the problem? Or maybe how about we just have more citizens? We speed up the process for naturalization. That would be
Oh,
amazing. It'd be
absolutely.
far cheaper than housing people in concentration camps.
Yeah.
So and not to mention just the ethical part of that, which
Yeah.
is it's
And
inhumane.
the process is so crazy slow. And
Yeah.
I didn't even realize, um, and I'm talking about for people that are not brown.
Hmm.
Okay. I have an online acquaintance in Dallas, and he is cool as hell. They're uh, like business coaches, but his wife is from Canada.
Okay. Yeah.
And it took multiple years. I don't know the exact number. She just and I was blown away that she even wanted to continue down the pathway, but she just did the whole naturalization ceremony like a month ago.
Oh, okay. Cool.
It's multiple years,
Yeah.
and you couldn't be more white from a more friendly country.
Yeah.
She's as white as you can be from Canada, and it took her multiple years to go through the process. It's insanity. And so then when you throw in the color of your skin, and these um, other humans have built businesses, they are employing other humans
Yeah. Yeah.
and still aren't naturalized. And even you go back down to the color of skin thing, it doesn't make any damn sense. One of the times we were at Disneyland, we were at Disney California Adventure, standing in line for Lightning, the Cars ride.
Okay. Yeah.
And there was a woman in line who was, I'm gonna assume she was black, and she had that, pigmentation, um, for lack of a better word, disease, condition,
Impetigo. Yeah.
um,
Right? Impetigo?
where patches of your skin are they don't have any whatever that they weren't black, they were white, and she had large
No, that's not
patches
it.
that were like that, and they were if it I mean, I'm a little bit tan, but this camera doesn't makes me look whiter than I am. But those patches were whiter than you and I combined. And I'm like, you people are freaking idiots.
Yeah.
It's
It's because,
just a chemical.
yeah,
It's
race is a
yeah,
construct. Yeah.
it's literally just that you if like, I mean, like I'm saying, there were huge patches on her arm. If you could somehow, like the whole elephant thing, where a person can only touch the leg or the tail, and if you could somehow like put her arm through a hole and that's all you could look at, and you say, "Oh
Right.
yeah, that's a white woman,"
Right.
and then you took them around the other side, and you're like, "Holy crap, that's a black woman with a white arm." It's
It,
insanity
it doesn't
over the
make it.
fact of that you're brown or not.
Yeah.
But again, I grew up in North Tulsa, and but the high
Mm,
school that I went to was
and
50% white and 50% black
yeah.
by federal law. We
Yeah.
were designed to be that way. So it's
Yeah.
just like I've never understood it.
And deconstructing thoughts around that and learning and educating, it's a process and it's an ongoing process. And,
Yeah,
but that's a good thing, I think, to ask and dive and just try to learn more about the things that again, the accidental geography,
yeah.
you're surrounded
Oh, yeah.
by what you're raised with. But well, Dave, thank you so much for, hopping on and taking time out of your busy church day. uh, and
Yeah, no, we wiped out my not going to church advantage for the morning.
yeah. Well, I hope it was worth it. So I hope you enjoyed it.
Absolutely, so much fun.
All
You're
right.
awesome.
Well, I'm gonna get off here. Well, you too. And I'm gonna get off here, and I'm gonna go buy some Superman tickets so I can go this afternoon. So sounds
All
good.
right,
All
thank you
right.
so much.
Thank you. Bye.